Destination Aviation. I'm your host, Jeff Miller. We're going to get right into our conversation with Alan Walsh with Sentient Aviation. We just had it, so I already know it's a good conversation. Some technology pieces coming into our world and kind of some of Alan's perspective on that. So we'll jump right into Alan, and then I'll have a few comments at the end of this episode. Well, Alan, welcome to Destination Aviation.
Jeff, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Great to be on. Great to spend some time.
Yeah, no, I always love getting to know people. And I will say, I looked a little bit, obviously, I always try to look when somebody comes on the show. We don't know each other. I say that up front. Sometimes I know who's on, sometimes I don't. But I always love getting to learn myself. And from looking at some of your background, I think this is going to be a very enjoyable conversation for me. And we're both in the aviation space, which is always great when you're in aviation.
It's a good place to start.
It's a good place to start. But maybe, Alan, you could just talk a little bit about your background, how you got into aviation, and what brings you to the show today.
Well, of course, appreciate the chance to do that. I always refer to the fact that I'm a relevant infant in the aviation world, having only spent 7 years at this point in time in aviation, where most people I know are lifers, and that's great because it's very deeply passionate. My background is actually all in the technology world. Having grown up from that, you can obviously tell. I live in Massachusetts, but you can guess I'm not originally from Massachusetts, right?
I take a guess.
Yeah. Although it's not a novelty to be Irish in Massachusetts, right? So
that's a valid point.
I will say I am originally from Ireland, from Cork in Ireland, having come to the US for 1 year, 17 years ago. And I joke that I'm 17 years into my 1 year plan, so
you're 7 years into your 25-year plan with aviation.
There you go.
Okay,
there you go. I was all in the technology world, but I said around that 7 year mark, 7 years ago, I happened to meet the CEO at the time, Andrew Collins, and we had discussed a vision around bringing technology into private aviation, which is, I'm like, I know somebody that can do that. And, that was kind of the entry point. And from there, when I came into the Sentient world, we did do quite a bit on the technology side, really around infrastructure. At the time, phone systems, CRM systems, building out data, building out analytics, all of the things, enhancing the mobile app and mobility in general. And all of the things actually, it wasn't a driver in the sense we should just go do this. It was really, a lot of it was staying engaged with our customers and understanding what they wanted and what they would want, and then how we were positioned to put that in place. So that was the entry point. Ton of fun to do that. Real ton of fun to do that. And allowed me to go into the business, because to build it, you have to understand it. And that was a big catalyst, and I've loved every second since, so I've done that on the Sentient side. I had the opportunity to then spread my wings a little bit, pardon the pun, and, almost have multi-brand ownership, where I also had, looked at I oversaw the services business on the FlexJet world as well in parallel, before about 16, 17 months ago, now being asked to lead the Sentient brand. So that's the quick and dirty.
So you're running Sentient, which is a aircraft broker. I mean, you're running 135 charter, but you're a broker for getting clients into the business side. People that we have our audience. There's a lot of people in our industry, but the other part of it are, just interested, they're aviation enthusiasts. So when you talk about, we had somebody on before talking about the jet card, but in reality, what you're kind of saying is, if someone's who's listening, if they maybe don't want to have all the burden of owning a jet outright, they could work with Sentient, with your group, and basically charter the aircraft. Is that what did I get wrong? What did I get right? What do you want to explain better?
Yeah, I mean, we're firmly in the jet card world.
Okay.
So, for us, we invented that in 99, so just over 25 years ago. And it was a disruption in the market at the time. But when I say disruption, again, not for the sake of it, but rather an innovative approach to say, yes, people have their desire, need in a very successful charter world and very much in the fraction world as well. But there was definitely a niche in the middle whereby you just said it yourself. People were saying, I do want the consistency, the availability, the guaranteed availability without ownership, without the asset management and all of the trials and tribulations that come with that. And, the beauty of it is building that model, but also saying, but those hours that you purchase and pre-purchase them, they don't expire. That for people has been, that was a really big draw, because needs change, desires change, So being able to scale up and scale down accordingly to suit your own needs, that's the part of that consistency that people still continue to enjoy. Say, 25, 26 years on. And it's a big draw. So for anyone in that, 25, 50 hour range where you fly frequently, but you don't want any of the overhead, is the perfect model.
So you grew up in Ireland, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
And you said now when you were growing up, at what point were you deciding you wanted to spend 1 year in Massachusetts? What year was how old were you when you decided to do that?
What, it was 08.
You
Yeah.
were eight.
Oh,
Okay, so you were pretty young. So this
Yep.
is a
Yep.
parent's
I was, I
decision.
was, I was 12 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
Joking.
Still a parent's
I'm joking.
decision.
I'm joking. I'm
Oh, you're
joking.
joking.
I'm
Okay.
joking.
How
Yeah,
old?
yeah, yeah. No, I
Uh,
wasn't. I was mid-30s at the time. Yeah,
Mid-30s. Okay. And so at that point, so your background is all technology, right? For up
that's
up
correct.
till when you so is it did I read correctly? Was it Dell or what companies? Is that the company you were
Yeah,
one of the
so I
companies?
started out with a storage company by the name of EMC Corporation, very big in data storage. So I think data centers, all where you have, you see a lot and hear a lot about data centers today in
Yeah,
the
well,
AI
I hear
world.
you're hearing a
Yeah.
lot about it today.
So at the time, we had explosive growth then, but it was all around banking data centers. It was an offshoot from things that happened in the early 2000s, where you had major disruption and the need for what was referred to at the time as disaster recovery. So, that was a big part of what we did. And then there was the 2016, Dell bought the company out. And that was a big marriage. It was great. I mean, you're taking two giants in the technology world and bringing them together to create, 120,000 person company. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that part was a ton of fun. Still is. And I said I'm very tech forward or tech minded. I don't think it'll ever go away. It's just part of my DNA now.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask you. So, like, growing up in Ireland and being in your 30s, at that point, you had gone to school and everything. Like, your mission at that point was technology. You wanted to be in that world, in that space. Is that generally the plan? Like in my world, when I was 16, I had an airport manager say, I need someone to paint hangars and cut grass. And I was like, I'm your guy, I'll do it. But I didn't know anything about this world. So, like, for you to get in technology and then at 30s, you're in Ireland, you moved to the US. But at that point, you were settled, like, you were in your career. That's where you were going. Technology was, I mean, I say all
Hmm.
encompassing, but that's what kind of drove you to that? Was your family in it? Or I'm just trying to figure out a young Alan, not 12 or 8, but a younger Alan in Ireland. Was this something that just you gravitated to, or what?
To the
What
tech
part?
world, yeah, I've
Yeah,
always had a fascination for it. Um, I have a personal mantra which still is near and dear to me to this day, and applies to pretty much everything I do.
yeah.
Which basically is, if there is no precedent, you cannot be wrong.
Okay, well, there
Okay.
you go.
So why do I say that? Is
Yeah,
I love forward looking. As soon as I see something plateau, I'm like, okay, we're not. If I see something plateau, it means we're not doing our job. Like, and
yeah,
that's intrinsic to me. And if they said, if there's no precedent, you can't be wrong. Is really, try something. Just try.
yeah,
Because sometimes we can kind of get stuck in our own world and kind of going, oh, but what if I fail? Yeah, but what if you don't? Right.
yeah,
So try
yeah,
it. If it works, fantastic. You've done something new and different. And if you haven't, you've learned, and you can pivot and try something else. So, that was all that really came from technology for me. When I saw some of the growth, and then locally, I said this was a great technology company locally. I was lucky to get in there, and part of that was it allowed me to travel the globe in my early 20s doing a lot of technology work. And I spent the better part of 10 years traveling all over the globe, um, and spending lots of time in lots of different places. Which now, you're looking back, it was highly transferable into this industry.
yeah,
Having local knowledge of many parts of the globe and understanding how it works, how to get work done there, and understanding what's culturally normal, has been fascinating, and it's amazing, even though it's a technology background, just how much of it has been transferable into aviation. Like, that's the part, I think, that pleasantly surprised me the most.
Did you travel in your 20s when you mentioned, was that a lot of on commercial aviation, or did you find yourself in this space where you were traveling on, business jet or chartering? Were you
It was all in the commercial world for sure.
Did you find, I mean, obviously, because you being in a sector like technology, understanding probably what's the most advanced at the time when you were going through that, some of the parallels that you were saying when you got into it, but did you feel frustration when you were traveling? Like, oh, my computer's off when I'm up in the air. I mean, obviously back then it was even more constrained than we have now. I know every day you see the Starlink and over in not Ireland, but nearby, and what's happening between Elon Musk and the CEO of Ryanair. But were you frustrated when you got into the aviation world when you were trying to just operate in your side of it and maybe some of the limited capabilities that were available, especially back then?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. I mean, it's the good news, bad news is back then you didn't know what you didn't know because you
that's
didn't have
true.
the proliferation of Wi-Fi on board of an aircraft, right? That's still relatively new, depending on what airline you're on.
Yeah.
But certainly from a technology standpoint, yeah, when you're deep in it every single day, and then you touch something outside of that world where there is no technology, you're like,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
frustrating. Wouldn't have been the right word. I always found that interesting. Saying, well,
Yeah.
what if? What
Yeah.
if?
Yeah.
Or when, more to the point, when is technology going to touch this,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
No, not at all. And then, when I moved into private aviation, there's a lot of I'm going to call it catch up. There was definitely white space when it came to tech. And one of the things to me, I looked at it and saying we need to become a bit of a tech company in private aviation world. And, that's something we've continued to do and innovate over the past couple of years.
This is probably going to be my own edification on Ireland, but obviously the United States, unlike some of the other parts of the world, especially when you look out throughout Europe, the interconnectedness that's happened with trains, and we kind of gravitated in this country towards aviation. Is it a pretty robust market in Ireland? I mean, is it, especially on the private side? I've seen a lot of countries where the network's just not maybe as built out, obviously, as much, and it just depends then, within the country how much they kind of whether, even in our space, we struggle, I think, with getting people into aviation because there's just a cost barrier to a lot of it. But is it a pretty built out network in Ireland for corporate flying, for private aviation, or is it more commercial? I guess I'm wondering how much of your background when you when you were brought up in it through Ireland is
Yeah, I mean, being brought up in it, it was largely commercial. The percentage of people flying private would have been quite small. However, that is changing. It's changing a lot. Um, and when you talk about commercial, not many people know that Ireland is the lease capital of the world for commercial aviation,
I
right?
did not know that. Yeah, really.
There you
Wow.
go. Yeah, the leasing
Yeah.
capital of the world. And so private aviation is starting to grow and continue to grow there. Obviously, you look at things like Brexit, and when that happened, then Ireland quickly becomes the only naturally English speaking language or country in the EU. So that works to its advantage a little bit. And then you've got things like cabotage in the UK, which can be that became a thing again
Yeah,
upon
it did.
with Brexit. And then you look at, like you're seeing across the globe, between corporate and the explosion of private wealth. Yeah, I mean that leads to some growth in private aviation too, which that is a thing for sure. So it is becoming more commonplace. Yeah, and I think once people do some cost analysis on, if you're flying multiple corporate people together, sometimes it's easier to use a jet. It's more cost efficient. So
Yeah.
all of that, I think it's coming home in Ireland for sure. It's definitely growing.
So when you were in your 30s, you find yourself going to Massachusetts, you were still in the technology world, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that is correct.
And
Yeah.
so one year was that, I don't want to say study abroad, but what was your thought with one year in Massachusetts? Unless I got that wrong, but that's
So
what's your goal?
it was a particular within the company I was at the time. It was
Okay.
an opportunity to come. I had responsibility for a European and an Asian based team, and part of it was an opportunity to step up into a global role. And my leader at the time, he just said, "Would you come to the US and do it?" Didn't really have too many responsibilities, and I said, "Yeah, I'd do it for a year, and let's reassess after 1 year. I might like it, we might not, and you might not want me there, and you might." So we said, "Let's reassess after a year," and we did. And we said, "Let's give it another year." So we said, okay, one more year, which became, and ever since it's been, it's been, yeah, obviously it's been a big win for us.
Yeah, no, it's so once you got to that point, then how quick, this is also maybe some point for me to kind of understand FlexJet. You mentioned this. So FlexJet, you had, is it, and I'm going to apologize. Sentient it's not a subsidiary of FlexJet. You work for FlexJet, or you work for a part of that, or just trying to connect, because we do have a lot of people that listen to our show as well that interested in they're younger people, and so they're interested in career fields. And I think I might be confusing in my own mind here, but you might be the first time we've actually had like a broker on, and so I think people will be interested to kind of hear that leap you've made in your career and how that came about.
So do you want specifically? Do you want me to give the overview on
Yeah,
directional and how all
I'd
of
love
that
to
works
hear it. Yeah,
together?
yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, Directional Aviation is the broader company, of which the easiest way to describe it is it has a number of different shop windows. That's probably the easiest way to describe it, where, you can go shop in any one of the stores that you choose that works for you. So, within the family, there's quite a number of things. I'm going to call them solutions within the community that, depending on someone's needs and desire, they're all in the same store, right? So somebody wants charter, we've got a brilliant sister company in FX Air, incredibly successful and, very highly respected in the charter world. Obviously, then if your needs change and the jet card is the right fit for you, you've got the Sentient brand. And then ultimately, if you're looking in the fractional world, as people can slide up and down the environment, is FlexJet. Okay, so that's the big brother in the room for sure. And then, people are not always aware that there's also the aircraft management side of the business with Cerio, as well as our helicopter vertical. And, really, when you put all of that together, it's a compelling vision in the sense of whatever the solution is that you're looking for, we've got it for you. And as your needs change and, you desire that, look, I no longer need a fraction, or my needs have changed, same with a jet card. And, I might want to charter as a one-off. You can. And the great thing is, you don't have to leave the family to do it. And you're getting that real consistency across all of the brands. Even though they're all different shop windows, the approach, the attitude, the professionalism, the availability, that consistency is evident across all of the brands. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, it does. So when you got here, Massachusetts, you were working in the technology sector. You hadn't flown too much. It sounded like, at least from our previous kind of talk on this, corporately. So this is always interest to me, because I know how it came about for me. And I always say, I feel like our field has unattended barriers because people just don't understand. And I didn't understand it. So who made the connection to you while you were a young man in Massachusetts and said, "Hey, you're a technology guy.
Yeah.
We have a problem." Like, how'd that come about?
So it was, I mean, I don't mind saying this in the sense of my career in Massachusetts was great. Really enjoyed the technology side. But as the Dell acquisition went through, it became evident after a while that career progression would really have meant relocation to Austin, Texas. Nothing wrong with Austin, Texas in any way, shape or form. I spent a lot of time there, but at a personal level, I did not want to relocate to Texas. Because I have proximity to Ireland when I live in Boston, and that's important. And so I happened to again be introduced to Andrew Collins, and part of my background for many years was leading companies and executives through what they refer to as digital transformation within their companies. And when I met Andrew, and the conversation was really around, hey, we're really looking to do that type of transformation, and that was really the catalyst. And, I've always been a big believer in roles that I've had and had the privilege to lead teams. Is, somebody would ask me a question and saying, hey, thinking about this, what do you know about this technology? What do you know about this business? And if my internal answer was absolutely nothing, I was like, I'm in, right? So, in terms of, I love the challenge. And when this opportunity came up, like this was the biggest I know nothing about it search for myself. I'm like, wow, what a challenge. It doesn't come along every day, So that was the catalyst to jump. And then Andrew has been an incredible mentor around, come in, take a look, see what you see. and then let's sit down after a period of time. And we built out a roadmap that there was a desire to say, hey, this is what utopia is. I'm not quite sure how we get there, but let's figure it out.
Yeah.
And, anyone's that kind of interest, that's the greatest challenge you can ever be presented, but it's the best fun.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's always nice to feel challenged, and then the reward that comes to that within your own career field. When you went through this process, then obviously it's, and I apologize, is it Andrew? Is that the person you keep
Yes,
referencing?
Andrew
Okay.
Collins. Yes.
Andrew,
Yeah.
when Andrew first mentioned this to you, it sounded like, so obviously, because I've been in this world for 25 years in aviation, not a broker, but I do know in aviation, it's getting past that point now, it seems like, but we are very closely tied to our papers and our pencils and our
Yeah.
pens and our,
Yeah.
our manuals. But when you were brought in, that was some of the first challenges up front. Was it the behind the scenes stuff to make it a more
Yeah.
well-oiled machine, that you automated processes and stuff? Was that kind of your mission when you first came
Yeah,
in?
it was. So again, this was, I think, being able to lean on some of my prior experiences
Yeah.
was, I'm a big, big, big proponent and believer in the service experience. And if you are my customer, then my deep, deep belief is it should be the easiest thing in the world to contact us, communicate with us, and do business with us. And if it's not, we're not doing our job. So, so that was really, again, a driving factor when you came into the business. You said that, yeah, things like a lot of paper. I'll simplify it by saying that a lot of paper. Was it easy to do business? It's way easier now, put it that way. It was easy for then, but there was a quick recognition that that wasn't always going to be the case. We would have to do work and do a bit of surgery on it. So, with that as the rubric of we have to make this as easy as possible, then it was the choice of, well, how do people contact us today? Well, they use the telephone and they use email. Okay. But then as soon as you start quickly, talking to some of our card owners, I quickly identified and understood that was like, but they also want to be able to text. Again, it's the technology. Why can't I just text you? Like, yes, we should do that.
Yeah.
So, that was another quick step that we understood and went after quickly. Mobile app was the same thing. Again, my belief is you should be able to contact us using any medium you want, anyone that you choose, right? You shouldn't have to be governed by what we think. So, we should just make it all available to you, and then you choose how to contact us, and we'll make sure that we answer in the fastest possible way.
Well, I was going to ask you that because obviously in that world, where I work, my day job, I want to say we probably have in the air on the field, probably around a dozen or so charter broker operators, everybody with a little different flair in how they do things. But for someone, that, let's say, I'm, and COVID kind of opened this world up, it seemed like, a little bit to people, that they were like, oh, wait, I don't have to own a jet. I can charter a jet. I could do fractional ownership, a jet card, whatever they so choose. But if you were saying that to someone, maybe let's say at this airport, what do you think would set Sentient apart from another broker or another operator? When maybe the technology piece, obviously, I think is where you would go with this. But what is it the functionality? Is it the breadth that you could, to your point about communication, or is it, services on board the aircraft? Is it avionics on the aircraft? Is it the aircraft itself? What would you say you're providing to the end user who wants to get into this space and, charter an aircraft through you guys, that would set you apart from another?
So there's a couple of ways I'll answer that. And so, we have the company built on four very, very, very key pillars, Jeff. So safety, service, innovation, and sustainability, right? We've been overt about that as a company. And it's not just words. There's
Yeah.
something, that they're very deep. And, also, Sentient is known as a thoughtful way to fly. So everything we approach is done thoughtfully. So that's the first thing I will say to you. On the safety side, we were there's a number of firsts that Sentient has done, is that we created the Jet Card. We were the first to bring in an independent safety advisory board in 2005, from, former officials of the NTSB and the FAA. And what that does for us is we quickly built out what we call a Sentient certified program for our operator network. So what that really means is, if we were going to do business with you, unless you meet our safety standard, we're not going to use you. And as a result, even today, we probably only use about 30% of available lift across the US, because we certify every single operator, aircraft, crew, and flight every single day. It's non-negotiable. And that's the standard that we have. And even when we do that, our vendor relations team will also go on site and inspect and make sure that the aircraft, they're everything that we're being told that they are. So that's something, there's an incredible rigor around that. On the service side, I could talk about service all day, but innovation side, it's not always just around the technology. Again, that safety advisory board was innovative. Some of the things we've done in the last 12 months around sustainability, cryptocurrency, again, all of that ties into the innovation side as well. So we never stand still in that regard. And clearly on the sustainability side, not many people may know this, but in 2021, we brought in an emissions offset program, not just carbon, but all emissions offset program at our investment. So this is at no cost to our clients, where we offset all emissions on their behalf. And we've been doing it since 2021 and offset 1.8 million tons of emissions in that time frame, and continue to do so. So I say all of that because it goes back to the answer to your question: what do we bring to the table? So we bring stability, we bring consistency, we bring guaranteed availability. I call them all the illities, right? And so for that is, you see, like, COVID was incredibly weird, and it had a very bizarre cycle. But for us, coming into it, coming out of it, during it, it's consistency. And that's the thing. I think it brings a lot of comfort to our card owner base. Our loyalty is in the 90%. People don't leave at a great level. And, that for me is probably the biggest testament is, do we think we're doing the right things? Our card owners tell us that. It's demonstrated in what we see in terms of the loyalty and the retention. So that's probably the biggest determining factor.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. And you've mentioned this a couple times, so I'll ask. Obviously, I think in our world, most people know NetJets and that kind of quarter share. But the jet card itself, that started with you guys, because I'd say kudos, because it seems like a lot of people have adapted that style for their own operations. Yeah, and a variation of it. But I think the roots of it, if that came from you, kudos to you for that, because that seems to be like the gold standard for this type
There
of
you
fun.
go.
There
Yeah,
you
there you
go.
go. There you go.
Do you, so I was looking at your guys' website a little bit before we got on. Is this, if somebody was going to charter with you guys, is it around the globe? Or like, I know NetJet's claim, I think is it 3, you would know, 3 or 4 hours within the lower 48 that they can guarantee an aircraft to. But with you guys, are you worldwide? Can someone work with, you to fly wherever they so choose, or?
Yeah, I mean, they can. So, I mean, look, it's no secret we're North America focused, North America based.
Yeah.
But that said, we absolutely do have an international program. We do have an international arm, and it's been an interesting 12 to 18 months where we're seeing more and more people actually do that, fly internationally, where both the point of departure and arrival are outside the contiguous US states. And, we're seeing pickup in South America. So certainly that's coming in. Yeah, I think people are becoming more attuned, more comfortable to going international. On the aircraft, it's becoming easier to, as all of the aircraft operators and companies become more comfortable with it, as well as each of the departure and arrival countries. So we're certainly to see that pick up, even though I said it's predominantly North America focused. International is there. It always has been and always will be, yeah.
Do you see that growing with the World Cup? And you guys, have you picked up on all of that type of activity? Has that been
Yeah,
in
we
your
have. I
portfolio?
mean, if I look at it, like, we probably started our focus on that now 4 to 5 months ago. When we looked at 16 host cities, 90 FBOs around all of those combined, and, you quickly start looking and saying, well, what type of aircraft can fly into each one of these FBOs, landing fees, charges.
Right.
You look at what is the ability to get in and out. Is there parking? Are they drop and goes? And so all of that work was done. And then we started getting the bookings, and, we're we probably saw at the height of it starting to taper off now because we're coming to the end of the tournament, but we were seeing booking growth of 40% week over week for the first 4 weeks of the World Cup. And yes, people flying in and out of Mexico, people flying in and out of Canada, back and forth across the US. And interestingly, we saw a big jump in multi-leg flights. you always see these types of things, right? Super Bowl or whatever. It's a lot of last minute booking. Is oh, I really should go. Well, this was the same. This was the same, but people traveled around. And yeah, that I wouldn't say it was a surprise, but it was higher than what we've seen before for tournaments. But then it's a very unique tournament. So I think it's
Yeah.
been amazing. We've got the final on Sunday in New York, and I would just say, the very best of luck to Teterboro and Morristown because I think they're going to have,
Yeah.
it's going to be insane.
Yes, I know several people at both airports, and I've talked to them, and they've been the same as you. They've been in planning mode for a little while now, but yeah, best of luck. That's a
Yeah,
good thing.
I wish you luck. I wish you luck.
How how do you feel technology is going in our field? I mean, with all the advance, I mean, obviously AI seems to be the buzz right now. And then we've talked a lot on this podcast. A lot of it is up in the flight deck, and a lot of it is automation. And then just people that listen that see the news and see, and it's interesting because the sky, you can kind of look at it in two ways, right? The sky was kind of, I don't want to say a refuge, but I think a lot of people that fly commercially look at it as this was the last spot where your phone was off and you wasn't someone,
Yeah.
but I mean, obviously, things are going to advance and people are going to, have these conversations. And from what I've seen, I mean, the articles, it sounded like the highest package now was Starlink's. It went from 10,000 to 20,000. I'm assuming for an aircraft similar to what you guys fly. Is that type of payment one you think is a necessity in your world now that people, if they get on one of your planes, they expect it to be interconnected anywhere around the globe? Is that some keys to the success you see in operators like yourself, or what? Where do you see it, technology? Where you see it going? How are your feelings generally where we're
Yeah.
at?
So, I mean, there's two trends of thought, right? There's around AI and then there's around the Starlink ones. I'll talk about Starlink first. I think Starlink, it has its place for sure. When you look at the productivity opportunity in private aviation while you're in the air is incredible and it's enormous. And Starlink enables that in many, many ways. And, I think if you're on a private aircraft and there's two or three of you and you want to take the personal call, you want to do that work, that's fine. Certainly enables that, and that's great. If you're sitting with 150 of your best friends on a commercial aircraft, right, you probably don't want to make the call or take the call, right? So there is that.
Yeah.
And but that said, it's technology. It is here to stay, and it's not going away. It's certainly, I term it that it has its place, and that's not every place. I think so. I think that's there. If I look at the pricing stuff last week, I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Um,
I saw it. I was
y-
like, huh, that seems like a bit of a bite of the apple, but okay. All right.
yeah, there's been such, and I suppose an uproar on it. Do I think that pricing is here to stay? It can't. I think when you start looking at things like Wi-Fi, when that became prevalent and then it came out first and it was expensive, but after a while it becomes a utility, and that's the way it is today. And I think ultimately Starlink is new, and it will be adopted, but ultimately it will become a utility. At some point it may displace a lot of Wi-Fi, but it will be utility. So I don't see that pricing lasting.
So, like on your aircraft, generally speaking, everybody's pretty interconnected. It's interesting to me because I've seen, I myself fly usually commercial, but when I fly commercially, I always find it interesting the airlines that seem like they've had these kind of periods of evolution, or they've gone a different route, or maybe some technology's gone the way of the dodo bird. But you see some that invest into like the head seats in the back of the planes, versus some are now, oh, use your own device. You're kind of like a car, right? Where the manufacturer's like, oh, wait, we don't have to put the navigation system in the car. He has it in his pocket. Do you see that your aircraft are enabling the users that get on your aircraft that their technology is available for use, or is it a hybrid where you're adding some of that into the planes that they can use? Or I guess I'm just curious on that aspect of it. Is there something there that you're like, oh yeah, if you're going to charter an aircraft, this is the list of expectations, a bare minimum that people want in the back of that plane?
Yeah, there is. There people do have expectations and desires and wishes for sure. If I look at Starlink, it's still in its I want to say relative infancy across the network. It's coming for sure. And I think it will become a standard, as I said, almost a utility in the not too distant future. For those that want Starlink, they're overt in their desire to have Starlink on board, and that's fine. And we can certainly work that for them and in their favor. I wouldn't say it's incredibly prevalent just yet. Certainly among the corporate flyers. The corporate flyers, yes, they absolutely want that. But I think if you're looking at some of the demographic that are, in the retired age bracket, like that need and that demand is not there yet. So people they do have different desires around it, but it's for the corporate flyer that wants to and needs to be productive. They do have the need. We can solve for it for sure. There's no problem. We have enough. There's aircraft out there where it's becoming more and more common.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, some of the stuff, I've been on projects where we've built buildings, terminals, stuff like that,
Yeah, yeah,
facilities at airports. And, some of the behind the scene technology that, maybe the passengers never see or touch or knows there, like, adaptive HVAC units, things of that nature, adaptive lighting, smart windows, those things that make your experience better without you being right in your face. But I would assume with
there you
your
go. Yeah,
right. But I would assume with your background, I would assume you're invested in that. I think like up in the flight deck, prime example, maybe like a Honeywell. I know Honeywell does their own versions of, RMP approaches and, working on those with the FAA, to the end user in the back. They don't care as long as they're getting there safe. But, at the end of the day, if you are able to shoot an approach to a runway because you have, a system up on the flight deck that allows you to do that, you just save time. Again, these are things that I know the passenger kind of knows about because they're like, why am I delayed or why am I here? But it would be with your background, I assume you're in that space quite a lot of the stuff that maybe the end user doesn't know, but makes the flight itself probably that much more effective and efficient. I mean, even aircraft type, right? I mean, I think that's a big thing with Gulfstream is getting over, if you could fly at flight level 410 and go above where Jeff is at 360, you're getting, more shortcuts when it comes to the air traffic control system in the United States. So is that another area where you have a lot of focus, is some of that behind the scenes stuff that seamlessly makes
Mm.
the travel better for the end user? Or?
Yeah, and I think like that's where the holistic term of AI is definitely going to play.
Yeah.
I mean, there's enormous productivity there. There's enormous efficiency. But I would tell you straight up, if anyone comes along and said, we've changed the world and we've changed our company because of AI, it's like, no, you really haven't yet. Because when you look at it, it is amazing, and what it can do is amazing, and what it will do, I think, in aviation is amazing. However, I would still say there's an element of extreme caution there because it's so new and it's bleeding edge still, that there's a lot of caution needs to come with it too. In the sense of, it's some of the data that you get out of AI in the platforms, it's just not accurate.
Yeah.
It's not mature enough yet.
Yeah.
And so that's the one thing. And I think secondarily, what you put into it, you'll get out of it. So if you put in wrong data, you're going to get wrong data out of it as well. So there, there's things there. And then the third part is there's the human factor will never go away because all of the data is the data, but unless you can put the human context around it, that's where I would urge extreme caution still on it. Now, that said, back office operations, productivity gains and efficiency. Yes, that's going to help, and it's going to make us smarter as it enables, I think, faster thought process. It enables better insights where, you mentioned earlier on about the paper aspect of it. Okay, if we can take that away and allow us to get to the end point faster and more efficiently, that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
From a productivity standpoint. But I would still say I'd urge the caution around, will I believe everything I'm told or every output I see? No, not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, I just fly for recreation, but I recently over the last few years have adapted from paper to for
Yeah.
flight. And it is, you even simple things like you're entering, you're getting close to an airspace, and I was flying to Battle Creek the other day, and it pops that I say for Jeff idiot proof, but it pops up and says, hey, you're getting close to airspace, you may want to contact
Yeah.
ATIS. But to your point about caution is I love it and I use it, but I keep all my other stuff up to date as a redundancy. And I just saw an article where somebody was shooting an approach, a recreational pilot, and their iPad died. And that was it. They had to break off the approach
Yeah.
that it was all
Yeah.
gone. It was all gone.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
But
you know,
I tell you one thing, there's
yeah,
one thing that I would find fascinating if you're piloting yourself, there's a cool factor here, which is that, you're coming into land. Again, I'm just making this up, right? So if you've done this 9 times before and this is your 10th, and all of a sudden you get some kind of a prompt, let's say on your iPad, to say, hey, you know what, Jeff, you're slightly off course from the last 9 times that you came in here, and by the way, 6 of those were perfect landings. So this is where you need to be. Like, you need to be right in this part. You're like, okay, that's incredibly helpful.
yeah.
Or if you land, you can get a summary of your flight and go, hey, you aced it. That was fantastic. Or it could be like, hey, Dumbo, you forgot to do this or these 2 things, or you're not as good as you think you are. So I think that's where you learn. And that to me, like, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting because you mentioned that we had a podcast a while back with Nate Dooley, and he's created a company. He's in California. It does exactly what you talk about. It can be adapted into existing aircraft. They're still in testing phases with it, but it does exactly what you just said. It tells you like, hey, the parameters are off from what you normally fly, or they're giving you suggestions. So it is, and I think especially if you're in a single pilot configuration, that
Hmm.
you have someone help take off some of that workload. To your point, I think it definitely
Yeah.
plays. Yeah, you mentioned something that I want to ask you about. You mentioned some of the I'll call them pillars within your group of areas. You mentioned helicopters. I'm assuming eVTOLs and that technology is at least on your mind as adapted into that space, or are you guys kind of
Yeah.
waiting to see what ends up happening there?
It's probably the latter. There's a
Okay,
bit of wait and see. I think it's not in its mature stage just yet. Do I think there'll be obviously opportunity in vehicles for it? Yes. So all day long, urban flying seems, that perfect fit. Um, I yes, there's a place for it. Yes, there will be avenues for it. I mean, you see, start some of the information about flying around in Dubai. I've spoken to a couple of people that have taken eVTOL flights, and the one thing that came back is like, oh, the cabin's not as big as I thought it was, or it's a bit louder than it maybe I thought it was, and these are the things that you have to go through. You have to go through those, teasing things out. But again, from my tech mind, I find it fascinating, and I do think it'll be incredibly disruptive once it goes mainstream into the public domain. I think that's where you're going to get a big win there. I mean, who likes sitting in traffic?
right. Well, it's interesting to me because, and I've talked about this in some of the past ones, and I'm like, I'll be curious to see because some of the more audacious plans of, to scale, you'd some 50, 60,000 in our state alone, by 2035. Okay. But it's interesting because better than most, with the way the airspace is designed today, that influx, like the Kennedy. The Kennedy is the main highway that runs into your alma mater, Kennedy, is the main road into Chicago. And the Kennedy would be perfect if Jeff Miller wasn't sitting on it. And so I think that with the sky, because helicopters, better or worse, the reality is you're going over it because there's a limited amount of people that have that resource. And so, I often wonder when you look at some of the more like, it's going to be at this scale. I'm like, is it, because then it's going to turn into, okay, I have a departure time at this point, yeah, and it's interesting. I'd be curious to see, like you mentioned, Dubai or Brazil or China, one of these countries where the regulations are a little bit less, and they can get through, but I haven't even seen them go to that level. And I've heard a lot of the kind of similar comments that you just made about it as well. And I'm not poo-pooing it. I think it'd be great if it comes around. But it's one of those things where, you look at aviation and you're like, well, you think about mass transit and some of the examples we gave earlier with Europe and where they kind of transition to high-speed rail. In our setting here, it's an interesting thought because usually on that grand scale of what is the most effective, it's where there's a lot of people, right? Like I just gave the Chicago reference, but if everybody shifts from the Kennedy to the sky, I don't know. I'll be curious to see how it all folds
Yeah,
together.
me too. I think it's amazing. I
Yeah.
really do, and I'm curious as to where the solve will ultimately be.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm,
yeah,
because the limiting kind of maybe factors of a helicopter, as far as cost. I mean, I think, there's the noise, kind of what we talked about before, even if they're at any level, because part of our industry is just that. A lot of my job, I deal with some of maybe what people look at as negative aspects of the industry. But if you have all these aircraft in urban areas, again, trying to adapt all that is it just it's very interesting. But what I have found over the last year, because I love what you were saying about AI and what this space, or getting towards autonomous vehicles, whatever it might be, but it seems like, at least for me, you're the technology guy, so you can say, Jeff, you're completely off. Is there was like Chat GPT, and that kind of opened this up to like someone like me, like not someone like you who's on the edge of technology, but someone like me. It's like, huh? So wait, I can put something in it, and then I did, and then it was funny. I was saying a story because a lot of times when I do a narrative on this podcast, I'll put a lot of stuff together, and I'll compile my notes through Chat GPT, and it took this whole section and created a fictional story about how a nuclear bomb went missing in Lake Superior, northern. And I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. And but I always say I feel like it's the best office assistant I've ever had. Uh, but that's probably where it's limited to. And so I loved what you were talking about using it, but maybe not relying on it too much, at least at this moment. Uh,
yeah,
so maybe it's more
yeah.
true. But
It
I
is.
have, yeah, but I feel like ChatGPT was kind of that, at least for the average person, the initial exposure to AI. And now I feel like everybody that had a product originally is like, there's AI on it now because it's a buzzword, right? Like, oh, it's got AI in it. And I'm like, well, how did it go from, this kind of small scale to like all the way here? And I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical on some of if someone just is like, I dumped AI into it. So I love your messaging because I think you're being practical with where we are in technology and kind of the next steps in it. Because I do feel like when something happens, usually people oversell, right? Sometimes they're like, "Hey, so
Yeah, I
solve
mean,
all your
you do.
problems."
Yeah, trust me.
Yeah,
There's no shortage of technology companies out there that will sell you. They sell you the vision, right?
yeah.
I think the applicability and the practicality are somewhat removed from that just yet.
Where do you see our industry growing as far as, let's say, 5, 10 years, or Ascension yourself? Let's say in 5 or 10 years, is there what's dramatically different? Do you think?
So I think there's going to be productivity and efficiency gains for all the reasons that we just spoke about. I think there's going to be a big maturity around that. But for me, the biggest win around it is going to be in your service experience. And so I'll tell you what I mean by that, right? Talk about our service as how it exists today. I'm a big believer again around a couple of key areas, which is if you send us an email right now, then our KPI runs, we'll respond to you in an hour. Okay. That's our goal. If it's a text, and that would be your expectation. If you send me an email, you're not expecting that immediate response. If you send me a text, timely, but not instant. But if you pick up the phone and ring us, you want us to answer and not through a menu. You want us to actually answer the phone. So we put that in place about 2 years ago around the phone side with the goal. And I said it to our team and they nearly killed me because I said, we're going to answer every single phone call in 15 seconds. They're like, what? I said, 24 hours a day, 365. And we use technology and analytics rather than just throwing people at the problem to be smart about it. And for 2 years, we've been doing that. We've answered the phone in 15 seconds. And if it takes 19, I'll be saying, Jeff, why did it take 19? What were you doing? Right. But we have that rigor around it. Now, so I love it and that's great. And they're the things that we promise to our client base. And, the great thing is when I meet a lot of our card owners in our community, they know our team by name. Like they know people on our team. Oh, Jeff is great. I talk to Jeff all the time. Right. I love hearing that because it means we're doing our job. Right. We're doing our job there. Now, if I look forward a couple of years and it won't take 10 or 15, this will be a few short years away. There'll be those times where all of your flying, all of your history, all of your preferences, all of your calls in the terms of, what they call the sentiment analysis. You can call in and kind of go, Jeff's not happy. Even though your tone could be monotone, it's just the wording and the phrasing. Well, I was like, "Hey, just not happy," or "You didn't answer his question." So there's a lot of that prompting that will help. Like that's going to turn the service experience much better. Um, and that to me, I think, is where we're going to continue to win and continue to gain. But I'm going to call them back office side. It'll become far more seamless as well in terms of efficiency gain, communication internally, and ultimately all of that is done transparently to you as the card owner. It will just be a better experience. That to me is like, there's no doubt in my mind that it will aid that.
No, I'm going to compliment you on adding in because I think, it's great to have someone who has the expertise as you do, the technology side. But, some of those would maybe someone my age would call old school, but picking up the phone, it goes so far with some people. So yeah, no, it really does. And,
Does
it's funny because it is a beautiful message that, even with all the technology we have, that's still one of the leading, this is an improvement, because it really is. I mean, technology is great, but how many of us just give me somebody,
Yeah,
please,
yeah.
somewhere.
And
And
I don't mind sharing the story that we had one of our sales people. This was about a year ago, and it was a competitive situation, and service was important to the individual. And he said, "Okay, I'll tell you what." He said, "If you're happen to be at home at 9 o'clock on Saturday night and you don't have anything to do, call our team, see what happens." Picked up the phone. That's it, within a few seconds. And so I say that because it was a real example,
yeah,
and it is, I said, deeply, deeply personal to me that if you ring, we'll answer. And that doesn't happen in many companies today. We could all tell our horror stories of sitting through phone trees and automatic updates. And, that to me, if that's what technology is doing, that's not a good experience.
yeah.
If you ring, somebody should pick up.
Do you feel that and there's a lot have, there's the Rotor Act right now, there's the PAPA legislation that AOPA or AOPA, Aircraft Owner Pilots Association has been pushing on. Airports aren't necessarily happy about it. I actually do support it. It's about landing fees, but I guess the overarching kind of thought or question here is some of that is tied into privacy and aircraft tails, and especially in the United States. I mean, there is blocking, but there's also the ability, I tell this to people, like, you read a license plate for someone who owns a car, right? Like me, you don't get to know that I was just at the grocery store buying milk. You can start to tie things pretty together when you own an aircraft and you're flying it. And like I said, there's a lot of stuff in the hopper right now they're working on to maybe put those into databases that aren't as clear for the general public to look. And I think there is legitimate safety concerns around that. But do you see that as an opportunity for a company like yours? Because the reality is, besides you and there's nobody that knows who's on that plane. I mean, is that a market that you see adapting where some of these groups that used to own their aircraft outright are saying, yeah, you know what, security is always a concern. We think we would rather be with, a group that has some anonymity around where we're going and what we're doing. I don't know. I'm just curious your thoughts on it, or is it not a factor?
Well, I think security is paramount. The
Yeah.
confidentiality is
Yeah.
paramount. It's it's a sacred cow. It's never going away.
Yeah.
When I look at some of what we've done in the past, it's to me it's as simple as answering the phone. Someone rings, you answer the phone.
Yeah.
Someone's flying. There's the confidentiality that's never broken. So tech, flying, whatever changes in the future, I think that those are some very, very, I'm going to say traditional pillars of the business that to me should never, ever, ever be interrupted, should never be compromised in any way.
Yeah, it's interesting because for 25 years in this, so over that, I've worked for a fixed base operator. Most of the time, it's been spent at airports. I did work for the airlines for a little bit, but it's interesting because through those years, there are different points where there were different companies I knew that would be like, I know, let's say company X's jet is in Bozeman, Montana. That's interesting. So, and even when you start talking about things like insider trading and, it's funny because these movements, if people can track them, there are some real consequences, I think, to what people in different roles are doing, and so I kind of can understand it. And I would say in your guys' market, at least from what I've seen, there has been somewhat of maybe an exodus from private straight out aircraft ownership into a bucket more similar to what you guys offer, because it's less just there, right? It's less for the investors of, can somebody put a blueprint together of what we're planning on doing over the next year, because they can track literally where our plane has been, and make assumptions, either good or bad, wrong or right, type of thing. And so I was curious, since you're the man in the sea, uh, but
I joke and say they don't call it private aviation for nothing, right?
that's true. Yes. Well, I've loved getting to know you, Alan. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted listeners to know? Like I said, there's a good group of people that are in our industry that listen to this, and there's a good group that are just interested in what we do. So is there,
Yeah,
right?
no, first of all, thank you. It's been, again, I've enjoyed spending time with you as well. I think, look, for me, if someone is has the opportunity to listen in, Sentient has a very, very, very strong and historical place within the jet card industry, within private aviation. That's not going away. We see different things that are very cyclical in the business happen. We see global events that can impact it, but at the end of the day, like, we're here. And I think for us, it's the consistency, it's the availability, it's the predictability, that keeps people coming to Sentient and keeps them at Sentient. We invest a ton in our card owner community. Our goal is always like that seamless flying, really seamless. And it's very easy to say, but it's hard to do for the reasons I mentioned. Okay. I could tell you we answered the phone 15 seconds. Great. But we do. And we invest a lot of time and energy in it. We spent millions of dollars on our safety program. We spent $1 million on innovation. All of that is done behind the scenes deliberately and thoughtfully, so that, when you fly with us, it is seamless and it is as simple as it can possibly be. And that is not just me. It's the team of people that we work for. Their passion is unrivaled, from what I've seen. Our operator network, our crews, the companies and partners that we interact with. Like, to me, that passion is overt. I hear as many good things about the crews that we fly with as I do our service teams. So it's a fantastic marriage, and it's something we never, ever, ever take for granted. And, my rigor and my drive, my energy is around never taking it for granted, doing better. And as I said, keep moving, keep pushing, keep making it better.
Well, I love the thought and the messaging, and that, the reality behind it is, to your example, you call us on Saturday at 9 p.m.
There you go.
Find out
There
for
you go.
yourself.
You get to talk to Jeff. Jeff will answer the phone.
Yeah, if I get to 19, though, you can't tell Alan. I mean, are you guys at MBAA base in October? Do you go to that?
Yes.
Okay. We
all have a presence there.
We have a big booth there and everything. So we'll have to at least meet up. I give you a challenge coin from the podcast at the very least. So
there you go.
I love
accepted.
I love Mo connected us, because I love getting to talk to interesting people, especially people like, the people that are in a field that they bring their talents into aviation, because I love seeing, your energy, your thought process to try to improve, because there is, you get into it, we talked a lot about it, but you see some of these old kind of archaic systems sometimes. So I love that someone with your passion and thought and experience is working to make this industry better. So thank you for that.
No, I enjoy this. This is technology at its best, right? Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking like this. So, there you go. It's I enjoy this as well. I think every time I get to meet somebody, I enjoy the conversations. I learn. I'm still a student of private aviation every single day. Like, there's never a day that I come in that something hasn't changed, moved, or you think you've seen it all and you haven't. So
Right.
I think. No, it's fascinating. I love it.
Yeah, me too. Well, Alan, thank you so much for coming on Destination Aviation.
Thank you for having me.
See you down the runway.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well, that was a great conversation we had, which I love. So anyways, working on some narrative stuff to get that out to you guys, because I got a lot of good feedback on the B 25 in Pittsburgh. So thank you for all the comments there. If you'd like to be on the podcast, dapodcast85@gmail.com. That's where you can find me. I love to have very interesting guests like we just had with Alan. Going up to actually this week that says will drop, I will have been at Oshkosh and I will just say, yes, I had fun. But looking forward, hopefully we'll get to meet some people up there. I usually do that, listen to the podcast. So again, thank you all so much for tuning into it. If you haven't liked, subscribed, whatever platform you're on, please do. We have the challenge coins on the website and the stickers, www.destinationaviation.org. Thank you so much for tuning in. I don't want to say it twice today, but see you down the runway.